In May of 2023, a taxi driver dropped a passenger off in an unusually isolated location in the dead of night. He had no idea that the woman he was transporting had an unhealthy obsession with true crime, and that she had just spent the last few hours acting out her darkest fantasy. That was until he helped her with her suitcase and felt the dripping from within it. On May 27, 2023, a taxi driver in the city of Busan, South Korea, called police after noticing something deeply disturbing about one of his recent passengers. The driver had picked up a 23-year-old woman in the city and had been asked to drive to the outskirts, specifically to the Nakdong River. The young passenger brought a large suitcase with her for the journey, which she stored in the trunk of the taxi. Once the driver and his suspicious passenger arrived at their rural destination, the driver helped the woman retrieve her bag, only he immediately noticed something was wrong. The bag had leaked a substance onto its outer layer and onto the taxi's carpet. The driver, not wanting to cause a scene, allowed the passenger to leave with her bag. He then inspected the wet, sticky puddle in his cab to discover that his worst fears were correct. The substance was... The taxi driver called the police, and the woman, a young true crime mega fan, was promptly arrested. Jung Yoo-jung had developed a fascination with all things macabre in nature and had committed what she reportedly believed to be her perfect crime. Months prior to her arrest, the 23-year-old loner had become obsessed with murders, consuming any and all media she could get her hands on that related to the killing of a human being. From books to TV shows, Yoo-jung immersed herself in true crime, and when the time came that she felt she simply needed to experience murder in real life, it did not take Yoo-jung long to come up with a plan on how to do it. Jung downloaded an app developed to help parents find tutors for their children. She posed as a mother in search of a tutor for her non-existent child. Jung found her target, a university student offering English lessons, and then told the tutor that her daughter was in 9th grade. They arranged to meet at the tutor's home. Jung Yoo-jung then dressed herself up in a school uniform that she bought online. Armed with the knowledge provided by hundreds of hours of studying murder, Jung set out to commit one of her own. With Jung being just 4 foot 9 inches tall, her disguise as a middle schooler worked. Once Jung Yoo-jung entered the tutor's home, she stabbed her victim over 100 times. Jung then exited the tutor's home, traveled to her own home, and retrieved her suitcase. She then went to a store to purchase trash bags, zip ties, and bleach. Jung was captured on CCTV wheeling her suitcase to the store. Her demeanor in the footage suggests she is carefree and happy at the time. From the footage alone, one would never suspect that Jung Yoo-jung had just taken a life. With a cleanup kit likely inspired by a true crime documentary, Jung cut her victim up and placed the body parts inside the trash bags. She then placed those bags inside her suitcase. Jung kept her victim's ID card, wallet, and phone. This was her attempt at making it appear as though the young tutor had disappeared, as opposed to having been brutally murdered inside her own home. Jung may have felt she had everything covered at this point, but she failed to clean the tutor's home sufficiently, leaving her own DNA evidence behind. At around 3 a.m., after carrying out her stomach-turning crime, Jung Yoo-jung called for a taxi. She asked for a ride to the Nakdong River. Once there, Jung disposed of her victim's remains. Luckily, her taxi driver called the police almost immediately, and Jung was arrested. When questioned by police, Jung initially claimed to have killed the tutor by accident during an argument. South Korean police easily saw through the holes in Jung's story, however, and she soon confessed to her sickening crime. Jung's reported motivation was that she wanted to see what killing another human being was really like. Investigators searched through Jung's phone and found chilling evidence that Jung Yoo-jung had been planning to take the life of a stranger for months. Jung's phone records have revealed that she searched for tips online on how to hide a dead body. Her search history also included terms like the perfect murder. She also rented multiple true crime books from the local library. It is worth noting that police found almost no contacts stored in Jung's phone, and no history of messages exchanged with friends or family. The reports of her being a loner were seemingly true. It is also true that this young woman was capable of horrendous bloodshed, but what could have possibly led Jung Yoo-jung to stab and then dismember another human being? Surely there had to be a better explanation rather than that Jung simply watched too many true crime shows. Perhaps her isolation had played a part. Jung had been raised by her grandfather after her father remarried when she was young. She reportedly did not like being around her grandfather, and when it came to friends, Yoo-jung reportedly had none, even during her days in school. Her classmates described her as strange, citing her choice to distance herself from her fellow classmates. This was seemingly all down to Jung, as she was reportedly not bullied at school at all. After completing her high school education, Jung became a recluse. She continued as a loner with no social life. She did not even have a job. This gives weight to the theory that Jung may have selected her victim with purpose and out of jealousy. The young female tutor allegedly had an active social life, was successful in her studies and in her employment, and spoke near perfect English, a language Jung had repeatedly struggled with since her early days in school. Whether Jung Yoo-jung chose her victim for this reason remains unknown. She may well have simply selected the tutor at random, as throughout this saga, killing was Jung's focus. Everything else was akin to background noise. Thanks to a broken relationship with her family and a lack of friends, Jung was completely isolated and possessed underdeveloped social skills. Reports suggest that her decision to kill was, in Jung's mind, a way to make her father suffer for abandoning her as a child. A member of the prosecution has stated that Jung's life experiences have played a major part in her decision to kill. Jung Yoo-jung seemingly sought an outlet for the deep-seated anger accumulated throughout her troubled upbringing, strained family relationships, educational and employment failures. It is believed that her psychopathic tendencies influenced the commission of the crime. Prior to her arrest, Jung Yoo-jung had no criminal record and no history of mental illness. While Jung remained disturbingly calm both after stabbing her victim to death and after being arrested, police have shared that Jung has expressed remorse for her actions. They have also revealed that she is undergoing psychological evaluations. Jung also said she feels sorry for what she did. We are conducting tests to see if she is a psychopath. On June 9th, Jung Yoo-jung appeared before reporters and offered up an apology. "I apologize to the victim and her family. I must have been out of my mind." The 23-year-old, socially awkward and unemployed, Jung set out with one goal: to commit her perfect crime. Jung was so obsessed with the idea, though, she failed to pay attention to the details. Had Jung properly secured her victim's body parts before calling a taxi, and had she extensively cleaned the crime scene, she may well have gotten away with murder. In the end, the horrible reality is that Jung's story now matches those which she was once so fascinated with. Having an interest in true crime is in no way a warning sign that someone is likely to commit crimes themselves. When Jung Yoo-jung took out a knife and used it against her victim, she was clearly disturbed and deranged, regardless of her hobbies in her everyday life. Now, she will likely spend the rest of that life behind bars.